There's great relationships between Rabbi Yehuda, the prince, the codifier of the Mishnayos,
right,
and the emperor of Rome. They say is an example of how the Jew and the Gentile can get along really well in this world. That's Yaakov and Esav.
It's Yaakov and Esav. Each has a role, right? Can we learn that internally? If you'd like to actually go and take a look at the source sheet, even have it in front of you as you're listening to the shiur, go to our website, which is HebrewLearningCircles.org. Go to Jewish Resources, scroll down to Parsha Videos, and you'll find the source sheet right there. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. And also share and like. You would think that Jacob's all-time challenge was his the threat of his brother Esau. But the Israel says no. Says the threat is actually there's a hierarchy among his children. The question is our troubles external, as of, my brother wants to murder me, or is our troubles internal, as of the strife between his 12 children?
But in this week's Parsha, Toldot, we have the birth of the third generation of the Jewish people, and we have at the beginning the very unusual birth of the twins, the pregnancy and the birth of the twins, who represent the conflict between the Jewish people and the rest of the world forever. We have it to this moment, to this day. It takes different forms, and that's Yaakov and Esav. That culminates in the selling of the birthright. At the end of the Parsha, which is where we come in today, because the blessings are given by the father Yitzchak to the children, and we all know the story about the switching of the blessings. The upshot is that Yaakov Avinu, as we see now from this verse, that Yaakov Avinu is instructed by his father to run away, to get away from his brother Esav, who is extremely angry, perhaps wants to have him killed or kill him himself, and he must run away to Padan Aram, the house, the land and home belonging to his mother Rivka, where we met last week the character of Lavan, to go there to escape the wrath of his brother, and to also, while he's there, find a wife from within the family. So this verse, very interestingly, is just simply the verse instructing his son to go away. It gives a very specific description of where and to whom he's sending Yaakov to. To Lavan, the son of Besuel, the Arami, the brother of your mother Rivka, the mother of you and your brother, Aim, Yaakov, Esav. And I just want to point out that it's seemingly, we're not going to be discussing it today, but it's interesting. It's seemingly superfluous. We know who everybody is. He certainly knows who his own mother is.
Yep. So why does he have to?
So why does he have to say this long, drawn out description?
But the Ishbitzer is going to open this up, and say, there's more in this simple little problem, describing in some the lineage here in such detail that's really overkill. Let's see what we can learn. So here we go. So I just want to read the verse. Vayishlach Yitzchak et Yaakov, and Isaac sent Jacob off. Vayelech Padana Aram el Lavan, and he went to Padam Aram to Laban, the son of Betuel the Aramean, Lavan ben Betuel Arami, Achi Rivka, the brother of Rebekah, who is the mother, Yaakov Esav, who's the mother of Jacob and Esau. So here's the Ishbitzer. Ainu ki hodia Yitzchak liYaakov כי כבר נשלם על ידי כל הבירורים שבין ישראל אומות העולם. That means that that Yitzchak informed Jacob that he has completed all the clarifications שבין ישראל אומות העולם, between Israel and the nations.
In the first generation, leading to the second generation, we had a problem. The first patriarch had two children and it wasn't clear. It wasn't even clear to the father who was going to be the continuation of the Jewish people and who was going to be splitting off into the nations of the world. Right. This is the Birurim. Another word for Birurim might be extraction. But there's a thing called spiritual extraction.
Yeah.
And externally, at the beginning of our history of the Jewish people, this was a separation, finding out who is a Jew and who is not a Jew. Mm-hmm. So we had a Yishmael who ended up being the father of a great host of nations, mm-hmm. The Arab nations, but he wasn't destined to be a Jew. Right. And now we had another separation. In the next generation, we had a further separation, like in a graph where it keeps on going off into different branches. Right. Now we have Yaakov and Esav.
Yep.
So this thing about Yaakov and Esav, the mother of Yaakov and Esav, yes, but we know now, because this was after the blessings, we know that this was the final separation. We know that now Yaakov, there won't be a further, when Yaakov has children, there won't be a further confusion.
Because Yaakov and Esau are in such conflict, but he's saying, this is you are the berur here, the clarification, or the extraction, is that there's something that's set in motion in terms of the relationship between Jews and the rest of the world and the rest of the nations, right? And here there's a conflict, but that conflict is going to settle. There will be some kind of resolution at the end, and Jews and Gentiles will have to find a way where all the nations will in the end be able to come to the mountain and worship together. And he's saying it may look like Yaakov and Esau are opposite and destined for conflict forever, but guess what? I don't want to jump the gun here. There's actually a bigger fish to fry in terms of relationships. ולכך לא יהיה מעתה שום עסק בזה בין בניך, יהיו כולם נקראים בשם ישראל. And from now on, you don't have to wonder, who's Jewish, who's not Jewish, because all of your sons are going to be the children of Israel. In other words, in this generation, there's not going to be division. Ach alehem yesh berurim hayoter gdolim mi'elu ben nefashot miYisrael atzmam. But they will have a different kind of clarification to, even greater clarification to figure out from that between Israel and the nations. This will be the clarification amongst the souls of Israel themselves. Leida, eze mehem nivchar, to know which amongst them is chosen or selected. Yesh harbe madrigot behem, because there are a lot of rungs amongst them. There are many different levels. Is it like social levels? Is it power levels? Is it spiritual levels, right? I mean, when we say that there are different levels, there's many ways to think about what the levels are. Let's continue. V'afilu la'atid shene'emar, and even in the future, as it is said, and here he's quoting Isaiah,
this is the famous prophecy of Isaiah. Actually, it's Ki mala haaretz de'eh savaya kamayim liyam mechosim, that when Mashiach comes in the Messianic Times, the entire world will be filled. Everyone will recognize the divine. Everything and everybody will recognize the divine. And some Mefarshim explain that the symbolism of the water is just like water is constantly flowing. This knowledge will, because God is infinite, the knowledge will constantly grow and continually expand until we're basically, we find ourselves within the water of the knowledge of God. So he's starting with this because even though it seems that there will be the Great Equalizer, meaning whatever divisions he's going to point to, the Great Equalizer are the Messianic Times. Yet,
even so, it says in Jeremiah, "V'zarati v'chule zera adam v'zera behema shem madrigot chalukot."
Okay, so here we have, seems to be a contradiction. This is what he's pointing to before with trying to extract, pointing out different types of Jews and extracting one type of Jew from another. And I just want to say parenthetically that he's one of the earlier generations. He's about the fourth or fifth generation already of the Hasidic movement, but it was still relatively early, meaning to say that there was still great opposition to Hasidic philosophy. And what he's really getting to in this whole piece is a defense of Hasidism being an equalizer. The Gemara says that when the prophet says that I have given seed to the Jewish people, to men and to animals, he's referring to some Jewish people as animals. And the Gemara is very clear. The Gemara in Sota says that the Adam, the man, the Jewish man, are learned Jews, and the animal are the unlearned Jews. He's talking about a type of a class warfare that had been unfortunately evolving over many centuries within the Jewish people. And this was one of the things that Hasidism came to address. The learned people were considered to be the elite, and there was a chasm between, and I don't want to get into this is what he's speaking to. So he's saying, don't worry, Jacob, your thing isn't going to be to figure out who's a Jew and who's not a Jew. That's done. That's finally done. It took 3 generations. Now we know who's a Jew, who's not a Jew. What we don't know are who's the superior Jew and who's the inferior Jew.
With the Hasidic philosophy, or you could say the spiritual philosophy, the Ruchani philosophy, that the person who has Torah is elevated. A person who doesn't have Torah is more in their animalistic nature. So they live by their animal impulses, right?
This idea that of Madrego's Chalukos, the Baal Shem Tov came and said, wait a minute now, you're in shul praying, you're sitting at home, your wife is sitting at home with the book of Psalms crying over the book of Psalms, or you're busy helping your neighbor, doing a mitzvah, you do a particular mitzvah in a beautiful way. That is just as treasured by God Almighty as the guy who can cite a Gemara all over the Talmud. And that was the Chiddush. That's why there was bloodshed between these groups. This was not a joke. This was literally the Adam and Behema, and this was a revolution. Revolution among the and this is what he's speaking to. He's saying, Yaakov, your battles, what you're going to have to figure out is not what you thought you were going to have to figure. You're going to have to figure something else completely over here.
You say, because in the Messianic days, a student will not fear the rabbi. There's not going to be the teacher. There's not going to be that hierarchy. Because you're not going to have people learning from other people. But anything that a person can bring new about Torah, meaning the scholarly creativity and the spiritual creativity of Torah, people will share with delight, with laughing, with smiling faces. It's going to be a friendly exchange instead of a stern top to bottom kind of dynamic. Because every person will be standing, would you say, extracted or clarified or clear, right? With clarity about what is their part, what is their contribution.
Everyone will understand who he is, where he fits into the system,
right,
to the infrastructure, like a pieces in a jigsaw puzzle. So just because, before I felt bad about myself, and I was made to feel bad about myself because maybe I wasn't as intellectually involved, or I didn't know enough pages of Talmud. I did because I didn't have an opportunity, and I felt bad about that. But now everyone will universally recognize that my function within the system of the Jewish people is just as important. I will acknowledge it as anybody else's. I am just as needed. Because if I'm missing in that piece of the puzzle, you don't have a complete puzzle. That's why he says Nishlam.
And Yaakov suffered greatly from these extractions or clarifications. And here we're talking about his 12 sons. Right. This is what comes next. Next parsha. And this was, for instance, the whole issue with Joseph, who thought that he was the top of the heap. Yaakov's trouble with Joseph was much more significant and much bigger than his trouble with Esau. You may think that Esau's the issue with Esau was the big issue. He's saying the issue with the suffering with Yosef, which had to do with the hierarchy amongst the Jewish people, was much more significant and much greater challenge.
He was sending his son away, and to start a life and to have kids, to start a family. And he's warning him. He says, don't think that your challenges and obstacles are the same as mine or your grandfather Abraham. You've got a whole different set of challenges and obstacles ahead of you. Don't be fooled. Be careful. And the first thing he does is he makes the great mistake. He didn't internalize the lesson, because right away he starts favoring Yosef and which the Gemara, our sages take him to task. That his battle was not the battle of Jew versus Gentile. His battle was the battle of Jew versus Jew.
That is why it says Rivka em Yaakov ve'esav, because Yitzchak did not, even though that they had tension, they did not favor. I mean, we know one favored one favored the other, but on the whole, you see, it's Yaakov and Esav. Each has a role, right? Can we learn that internally?
There's great relationships between Rabbi Yehuda, the prince, the codifier of the Mishnayos, and the emperor of Rome. They say is an example of how the Jew and the Gentile can, if they both have their eyes opened and are open to it, can get along really well. In this world. That's Yaakov and Esav.
To bring it down to just plain everyday psychology and spirituality in our lives, this is where I started, is that it seems you could think that that the greater challenge is those people out there, or those circumstances out there that challenge me, but really the greater challenge and the greater opportunity, for wholeness and spiritual growth is the internal within us. It's amongst the Jews. It's internal inside the person. It's not those who are outside us. So I think this is the psychological wisdom I take from this, is that internal harmony and the eternal challenge and the finding, allowing everything to be in its place without conflict is more essential than we think. There's other things out there that are doing it to us, and really often it's our internal work and understanding and clarifying that's really what needs to happen. The four words at the end of a sentence brought up a lot of good Torah. So, and with that, we're going to conclude for today. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. Happy Thanksgiving. Let's have gratitude for everything we do have. And Amen. Shalom for now. Click subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. We really appreciate that. Like to have that extra layer of connection with you. Like and subscribe. Come back next Wednesday, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Mayim rabim lo yuklu